you can literally ignore the rest, right? So like all the other ads buy tools out there, I mean, it's an endless list you go through, right? Why should I, as a marketer, care about an ad that ran for 2 days?
It
Why?
didn't work. It didn't work.
Literally, I look at stuff that didn't work, right? So I want to focus on the stuff that works. And I know it's also sales, right?
How do you scale past 1 million players? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds, the podcast for growth marketers. My name is John Koetsier. Anyone, especially today, can just start a game or an app and get a certain amount of growth. But scaling is hard. You need to find more players, sure, but you also need to expand beyond your initial niche of users. And you probably have to start paying attention to what your competitors are doing. To chat, we have Sven Jurgens. He's an independent mobile games consultant. He was the head of performance marketing at Language Tool, marketing lead at Tavola Games. He's been the UA lead at AppLike and much more. He spent over 60 million euros on ads, and now he's going independent. He focuses on scaling your game beyond 1 million players. Welcome, Sven.
Thank you, John. Hello.
Super pumped to have you. Thank you for joining. I know it's late in your day. It's early in mine. Looking forward to having this chat. You know, maybe before we jump into everything, we're going to talk about the challenges of scaling. We're going to talk about looking at competitors and what you can learn from them. We're going to talk about getting smarter from your data, maybe doing automation, stuff like that. And we're going to end with some winning strategies that you've seen recently. Before we jump into that, what was your journey into growth marketing like? Why did you choose this, or did it choose you?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, everything started with my studies, actually. So I started with my bachelor's degree and master's degree in marketing economics. So I wanted to learn how that stuff works. So how can you sell stuff? How can you really dig into research into the user's brain and sell something to the people? So my very first step was then going into gaming, because I'm a gamer. I like games. And so it just felt right and natural to combine these things. And I started with light games, back then a very small publisher, literally sitting in the basement and having one window where the sun was shining through.
Prototypical startup.
Yeah. So I was number 2 on the payroll, 2 interns. And but yeah, it was enough, right? So small team, but very flexible and fast, and rolling out things. And honestly, learned everything from there. So maybe these days are different, but back then I didn't learn about retention rates and Facebook ads in university, right? So maybe these days are different. It might be, but when I started in 2008 in university, I mean, smartphones came out, right? So it was new.
Wonderful.
Learn everything from scratch, basically.
Yeah, that's honestly, I think that's a great way to learn. And it's an interesting thing because what you learn in school has a foundation. It builds a foundation. But I mean, there's so much you don't learn that and you learn well when you have to figure out yourself. You learn deeply rather than just following in somebody else's footsteps. You have to figure it out. I love that. And you worked at multiple companies in many different capacities and sizes. So we're looking forward to getting that right now. And of course, now you're working with dozens, maybe hundreds of different companies, figuring out their scaling challenges. I like chatting with people like that because you see so many different things, and you can sometimes see some parallels and sometimes see some unique things and bring out some cool insight. Let's start here. What are the challenges of scaling, right? You start at a certain size, you start at a certain growth rate, you decide at some point, we have something here. We have something that can work. We have something that if we can scale it, this can grow. What are some of the challenges? Let's start with creative.
Yeah, it's a very good question, because literally that's when people call me. So they have something that's working. So product market fit is somehow there. Retention rates are making sense. Monetization is figured out. So they start making their first thousands, $10,000, right? But then how to grow beyond that? So and that's a very interesting thing, because for me, actually, it's a very thin line between doing what works and breaking out of that and doing the next iteration of that, right? So when we just talk about creatives, right? So creatives is the bread and butter of growing in the end, right? So what you usually do is copy pasting what the competitors are doing, right? So, I mean, there are tons of tools out there. I mean, I wrote also one of them that can monitor some ads for you. And when you just copy paste, it's totally fine, right? So everyone's out there, totally fine. Awesome. Check. But the thing is that the user that you show that in your Instagram feed or Facebook feed, whatever feed, they see that just a second time, third time, fourth, fifth, sixth, et cetera, et cetera. So for them, it's not new anymore. And that's like I said, the very thin line of doing what works from your competitor. Cool, copy paste that, but you can't grow beyond that. So you will iterate through your audience. You will burn through your audience way faster because they have seen the same concept the 10th time, 20th time, 30, 50 times, right? From everyone out there. And that is the point in time where you say, hey, I need something else. I need a new concept. I need maybe a new audience. Maybe I can dig deeper into that. Maybe it's not the 18-year-old shooter guy. Maybe I add a new feature. Maybe it's unlocking something more, right? Maybe I can broaden that scope. And I need to talk to them differently. I need to iterate on my creative strategy. I need to do something else. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's usually the main, also the most complicated part with me. Mm-hmm. Because, again, I was talking to many also in gaming or app business. They had found some angle, some creative, some thing is working, right? And they do that over. It's naturally, right? Everyone will do that because it makes sense. But it bores people out. It bores the algorithm out, the people out. And at some point, you just burn through your life. So you need something more.
Yeah. Something unique, something different, something uniquely yours, something that's not copy paste, something that you can start to build almost a brand around.
Yeah. So usually I say you have to afford brand building. That's also like an issue when you are too small and you, honestly, I also see that issue sometimes. So like the 2 or 3 people startups, they have tons of research and graphic design studio, figure out their logo, their brand, their font, their website, their everything. It's cool, but also you don't need that at this stage, right? So don't do it too early. So you have to approach branding. So do it later on. So maybe it's 6 figures spent on some network out there. At this level, you want to maybe figure out that thing. So what is unique to you? So right, Jeff Bezos said that, I think, many years ago. So brand is what other people talk about you when you're not in the room, right?
Yes.
So that's a brand. And everything that pops in your mind, right? So do a link.
That's not the things. That's not the things that you think about when you think I need to build a brand.
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually something that comes out of who you are. And that, to me, it's interesting because honestly, like, I'm treading on thin ice here because game publishers in general, especially starting game publishers, don't think about brand, don't like to think about brand. Brand has those negative connotations of brand advertising versus performance marketing. But that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about brand. I'm talking about what you were saying when you're saying, hey, it's no longer enough to copy paste those ad types that you saw were working from competitors. You have to create something, invent something, be something different, new. And if you can express that in your game, in your ads, in whatever other presence you have in the internet, that is the thing that people are talking about you. That's the brand.
That's the brand. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about Duolingo, for example, right? So what do we have in mind? So this crazy all stabbing you in the back when you don't do your levels, right? So, or Candy Crush is this very quirky, funny, bit of laid back thing, right? So it's, for me, actually hard to point at some creative, but it's this feeling I have, right? So when you think about this brand, right? So that.
Love it. Cool. So we're starting off with the challenges of scaling. We did the first one, creative. I want to talk about the second one, ad partners. If you're starting out, often you're starting out on Meta, Facebook, whatever. Maybe you're starting somewhere else. As you start to scale, as you start to build beyond that initial few cohorts, you're probably scaling some ad partners. What do you do? How's that look? What are the challenges?
I would always start simple. Start with the very basics. So Facebook, Google, TikTok, maybe these days. So that's a starting point. So you really don't need more. And I mean, when you zoom out of that issue, right? So do you really need more? I mean, yes, you need more at some point, right? But I mean, they reach billions of users, right? So you can literally reach everyone on the earth holding this thing. And first do these 3 or maybe 4 right, and then you can start expanding. But usually people want too many things too early. Also, so usually they say, "Hey, cool, I have maybe 100K of spend. Here are my 7 networks." No, it's too, because you maybe just have 2 UA people. Maybe you have only 1 or 2 designers, right? And this kind of cognitive overhead that you need to manage all of that is way too much. So start simple, maybe with 2, 3 networks. I mean, you can scale to millions with only 2 networks. Totally.
Yeah.
And beyond that, then, I mean, open just some index out there for top ad networks and go with that. So these days also a big thing. I mean, also a bit of bias because I was with them, like all this rewarded stuff is going well these days. So that's also like a network that you want to maybe look into that. But go with the ones that are listed in some index out there that you have some recommendations on. Don't go with every network out there. I mean, at AppLike, we did that actually. We had a person just being on the phone, do the very first onboarding to the network and set everything up, tracking link, server side, et cetera. And we were testing a lot of things, a lot. And the truth is, in the end, it was maybe 7 networks. Big 5.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Third one, challenges of scaling. Cash. You talked about maybe you have 100K, maybe you've got a bit more, maybe you've got a bit less, whatever. You have a limited amount. And in order to grow, you need to get the flywheel going of deploying cash and then recouping cash, making money so you can spend more, so you can make more. What are some of the challenges you see there?
Oftentimes it's the product, not necessarily. Maybe these days with inflation going on and recession, it's a bit different. But back then it wasn't necessarily like getting cash. So to get cash is fairly easy. I mean, you can ask friends, families, fools, investors, VCs, whatever. They usually give you some sort of money. But to fix the leaky bucket, to make retention better, to make your game better, to really have a sticky product, that's way harder. And usually that's the main issue. So you want to focus on some smart people, hire them with your cash that you have. Could be game designers, could be monetization designers, retention, whatever people, to really build a product that the people want to use and a game that's not losing people. Because in the end, it's then this funnel, leaky bucket, whatever visual you have in your mind right now, right? But when you throw in users and they are going away, you will lose them. So what you want to have is these stacked cohorts, right? You throw people in and they grow over time. And then, of course, there's a dying cohort and a churn curve in there. But you want to have that as small as somehow possible. So usually it's building a product that's not losing money. That's a challenge.
Which brings up another challenge, which is monetization. We talked about that initially, right? Because you started the scaling journey because you felt like you reached some level of product market fit. And that was good. You were gaining some people and they were coming into your game and they were playing and they were monetizing. So you felt, hey, we're on the path here. We can start this path towards scaling, towards growing to many millions of players. Does monetization change as you're adding new players to the game?
Yeah. I mean, the more people you have, the more data you have, right? So when you just start out, it's an assumption. So it's a best bet that you have. Maybe it could be like an ad placement. It could be monetization. It could be the difficulty curve of your game. It could be a lot of things. First of all, it's an assumption. And the more time you give to your product, the more people you generate and have in your product, the more data you can generate in the ad. And what's then changing is you do what works, right? So maybe huge concrete example, because I was working on that some weeks ago. It's a match 3 game and they have different levels, right? So we were figuring out, cool, what is the churn per this level, but also the spend of this level. And then we could rearrange that, right? So if the churn is high, okay, maybe it's a bad level, but when the churn is low and they are spending, cool, what's the common pattern in there? What's driving them to spend it. So it's about finding the patterns, and it could be like a near loss experience, right? Like in gambling, when you sit in front of a gambling machine and you have this 3 sevens and the fourth one is coming up, and maybe not, but it's near loss, right? So and then you start spending again and more and more and more. So what's going on when you're scaling? You get more data and you do what's working, and you can optimize your whole game, your monetization, your in-game behavior, your paths, your logic inside. This is can only happen when you have data. So otherwise, it's just an assumption.
Cool, very cool. Do your tools change? Do you buy new tools? Do you create new tools as you're scaling?
I would say, yeah. So when you're starting out as a startup, so you barely have someone creating tools for you. It may be on you or some Excel list. So it's very hands-on, very, very easy in the end. So in the mid-sized company, then you maybe have some BI guy sitting there, maybe some dev is working for you. And when you're growing beyond that, then you have obviously your own tooling. But again, the advice is the same, I would say. Start simple. So start as simple as possible, right? So it could be like your ASO research tool. Maybe you don't have the money for that. Then do that manually. Could be like your competition analysis, whatever, right? It's your analytics tool. There's always a cheaper solution, an open source solution that can do the trick for you when you're small. And when you grow, then obviously it makes more sense to say, hey, I spend these $500 a month and have the solution on my hand rather than building that up myself. And the bigger you go, actually, the more you do on your own. And then you have usually your tooling in-house, and it's also about work in a more automated way, I would say.
That's a great segue, because that's the 6th challenge that I want to talk to you about. And it's kind of interesting because you went to school, you chose this career path, but you were on the strategy and the marketing side, but you taught yourself programming. You taught yourself how to write code and to do some automation. Talk about some of that, what you need to do when you're scaling, what automation you need to focus on, and how does it help?
Yeah. So I would say, so this was also my main driver, because I was working mostly with startups and smaller companies. So usually what's happening is you write a ticket to the BI guy and they don't take time.
Exactly. That'll teach you to write tickets.
Yeah. Honestly, my main motivation to look into that and say, hey, can I do that? Can I solve that somehow? Right. So because automation is so powerful, right? I mean, how many times or hours of your life have you wasted doing some export of a CSV and upload that somewhere, or do some reporting, or Monday morning reporting, or PDF, whatever, right? So it's a ton of times, right? Out there, billions hours, I don't know, a lot of times. So also what you can do when you are small and when you're big, and along the way, automate the boring stuff away. So find a way. And this is literally just sitting somewhere and look at the daily process that you do. And you are amazed how many stupid things there are. How many times you iterate on some CSV, upload that to some tool, do some comma versus dot notation change, right? So all of these nitty-gritty small things. And you don't have to have a BI guy sitting there doing all the tricks for you. I mean, these days we have ChatGPT and all the cool stuff, right? So it's the tiny snippets that you can do these days that save you a ton of time, right? So just for myself, over the long weekends of Christmas, I was writing a small tool for myself. It's really simple, right? It's just maybe 100 lines of code. It's going to some news websites out there and finding like funding news from, saying, hey, cool, these apps have funding, cool, give me the name, maybe find the email, maybe find the email address or website, whatever, ping me an email. 100 lines of code, right? So
nice.
You can write that when you can't totally find ask ChatGPT, right? So you will get that somehow. Right? For sales people, marketing people, whatever people, might be super interesting, right? And this is what I'd say, right? These small tools, they can, I'm not saying replacing everyone, but still save a lot of time.
They're essentially superpowers, right? Giving you more time to focus on other things,
Totally.
and providing you insight and information that otherwise you'd have to scratch and work and claw yourself towards, and also that sometimes you just wouldn't do because you don't have the time. So you have to focus on what's most important. I thought you had a Christmas break. It turns out that you were working.
I did. But yeah, sometimes it's my wife calls it crazy, but for me it's like a puzzle, right? So it's fun for me to puzzle around
Wonderful.
with that and solve that. So for me it's kind of fun. She's like, "Are you crazy?"
Wonderful. No, that's great. Cool. So those are kind of the 6 challenges of scaling that I wanted to hit, but I wanted to talk about a few other things as well. We've kind of touched on it a little bit, looking at competitors, and we've touched on that from creative strategy. What are they doing? What are they using? Should I copy that? Should I learn from that? That sort of thing. Is there anything else that you need to do in terms of looking at your competitors at this stage of scaling? What do you want to learn from them? What do you want to see? And what do you want to get out of that?
I would say don't reinvent the wheel. So first of all, do what works, and this is also perfectly goes together with what we said before, right? So it can be automation, it could be tooling, it could be a guy sitting in front of ChatGPT or some BI guy, whatever. Um, knitting that together and say, hey, what are my competitors doing out there? You could, like I did with some tools out there, right? You could literally just go out there to the Facebook Ads Library API, right? You can ping that, say, hey, cool. My competitors are A, B, and C. What are they up to?
Mhm.
Did they hit some crazy ad recently in the last 2 weeks that is maybe outcompeting their whole account, right? It's a bit of math, really. It's not complicated, really a bit of math. And then you can ping yourself some sort of email, and there you have it, right? So your competitors winning ad. And this is also my critique on many tools out there these days, especially some research tools or ad tools or whatever tools. They are awesome at scraping like 1 trillion data points, right? 1 trillion ads, gazillion of whatever data points. And they write this all over the place. Awesome. But when you actually use that, it's an endless list. You scroll, right? Scrolling. It's not relevant. So that's my main critique. And I would say build your own tooling. It's really sometimes 100 lines of code, really simple, and focus on what works and ignore everything else.
I want to underline that. I want to add some exclamation points to that. I want to, star it, heart it, like it, whatever, and just double click on this a second because that's what I've seen too. So many different tools. You see 50 million creatives come through. Maybe you just go and look manually at the Facebook ad library or another ad library. They have them for most big platforms these days, and you just start getting glazed eyes and just
Yeah,
like, why am I here? What am I looking at? I mean, it's just this endless flood of everything. And data by itself, raw data, isn't meaningful. It isn't actionable. It isn't even interesting. It's deadly because you just get you can't, we're human. We're
yeah,
not ChatGPT. We're not super AIs that have, can operate at a million times speed or something like that. And so what you just said is really, really critical. Find which ones are working, the latest, the newest ones that are really, really working. And so you built some automations to do that, to see which ones are getting deployed more. Because if they're getting deployed more, they're making money, right?
yeah,
They're they're
yeah.
they're getting clicks and they're making money. And then focus on those. That's great. That's probably a tiny subset. That might be 1% of the ads that some competitor is using.
Yeah, you can literally ignore the rest, right? So like all the other ads buy tools out there, I mean, it's an endless list you go through, right? Why should I, as a marketer, care about an ad that ran for 2 days?
It
Why?
didn't work.
Yeah,
It didn't work.
literally, I look at stuff that didn't work, right? So I want to focus on the stuff that works, and I know it's also sales, right? So I know the point. I get it, right? It's great to sell. Hey, I have 1 trillion ads in my database. It sounds good, but in the end, it means nothing, right? So you want to have the ones that are relevant.
Wonderful. Worth the price of admission for today, just that point alone. So excellent. That's great.
So thank you.
So that also is a good segue. I mean, I didn't kind of pre-plan that, but it just kind of worked out. That's also a good segue to, the second last thing that I want to talk about, and that's getting smarter about data. Because as you're scaling, you're getting way more data. You've hit on that already. You're getting way more data about how people use your game or app, and that helps you get a lot more insight in how to make it better and what's working, what's not working, those sorts of things. That's something you can't do when you're just starting out because you don't have the data. You just have your raw intuition. I think this will be good. Okay, so that's good. But you need to be getting smarter about data because you're getting this flood. Talk about that as you scale, the mining, the analysis, and the actual utilization of it.
Yeah. Um, it, I'm not saying that AI can replace everyone. It's helping these days, I would say. So at some point you will still need some BI guy for sure. Someone maybe with a statistics degree, mathematics degree, someone who really knows what's going on. I don't have that, and I can still go to a certain place. Right? So it could be like a Udemy course or Coursera course, right? On mathematics, statistics, something. When you really like are in the growth phase, let's say, from start to mid-sized company, um, know what a regression analysis is, know the difference between the mean and median, for example, right? So basic stuff, right? Percentages, obviously. But this obviously already get you somewhere, right? So maybe you can't build like a super advanced machine learning algorithm. Totally fine, not a job, right? Some basic analysis you can do with a few hours of research on I don't know, Udemy or YouTube, or whatever, right? So if you don't have that set already. So that's the very first point. And then when you scale, I think there's no way around, at least not maybe these days, maybe in 5 years, there's some super duper AI maybe. But then you want to have someone in your team, really like a BI guy, right? They will write you some fancy code, some SQL, some automation, something that's helping you. And also figuring out the whole backend and where to store your data, right? So at like we were processing, I don't know, billions of data points, right? So they need to be stored somewhere, right? So, and this wants to be figured out at some point in time, right? And also at Language Tool, for example, we had all of our own AI also in some sort of backend. You want to have some backend engineer for that it's running and smoothly, right? So lot of stuff, tech stuff is going on then. But you don't need that when you start out. So maybe like this grown up phase, you would maybe say from startup to mid-sized company. This is then maybe the perfect time when you want to figure that out to have some BI guy, maybe also some more dedicated backend guys. You might have them anyways when you have an app, right? But someone dealing with marketing data and with in-app data that makes sense of that and then can pull these things, maybe write some sort of a dashboard for that where people have access to that, right? Product owners and marketing people, etc. And do your data mining first, and then your analysis first, and then like I said, cool, right? You need people to generate data, and then do what works, and do more of that, and figure out the perfect path that you in the end have a great product with a great retention rate, but also with the right monetization. Like in this tiny example from before. This Med3 game, want to figure out, hey, where are the people spending money and also not trimming away, right? And can you alter that maybe in a different way?
Cool. Awesome. So I wanted to end here. Just some winning strategies that you've seen lately. So you're working with dozens of apps and companies, probably on a weekly or monthly basis. And you've already brought in some, what you saw recently with the Match 3 game, other things like that. What have you seen lately that just caught your eye, that tickled your fancy, that you saw, oh, wow, hey, that works. That's cool. That's interesting. 2 or 3 things you've seen recently that are helping people scale.
Yeah, I think the latest thing, also LinkedIn was filled with that in the last weeks, is this, it's maybe not a trend, but new method in the end, that you have your AI UGC creators, that you, and this is kind of crazy when you think about that, because of the whole idea of user-generated content is the user,
Yes.
not an AI. It's a bit of crazy. But these are popping up out right now as services. And I was also playing around with them. It's, I think, not 100% there yet. It's still like this uncanny valley sometimes. Right. So they can do lip sync totally fine, but behavior doesn't really match, right? So some kind of movements is a bit off here and there. But it's amazing from a technical point of view. It's amazing. It's really crazy stuff. Give it a few months, maybe half a year, right? I mean, we saw that with Midjourney, right? So the very first images look like not so great, right? 2 years later,
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Right. And yeah, I think this whole idea of, motion picture, video generation, be it Midjourney, be it Kling, be it PicaArt, be it whatever out there. I think this is getting better and better and better. From 2 seconds to 5 seconds, from 5 to 10, right? And then you have 20 seconds, etc. High definition stuff. And then when they saw this uncanny valley effect and some quirks here and there, it's hard to say that, but at some point this could replace your whole design studio maybe, or your agency at some point, right? So I think it's not there yet, right? So like I said before, AI will not replace your BI guy right now, right? It can write a lot of code, not 10,000, right? You cannot write, I don't know, the new Apple OS with ChatGPT, right? It's too much, right? Not now, maybe in 5 years, right? So that's the point. But when you are keen and big, I mean, these tools also cost some money. But I would definitely look into that because it's quite interesting and very, very fast. And again, I was playing around with them, and yeah, you can choose really. It's a click box, right? So you can choose from creator ABC, and then you can interchange them. Click on generate, wait 5 minutes, and then you have 20 videos in 69, 916. What's crazy?
Pretty crazy, pretty cool in some senses. In other senses, if it's not quite there and it's not quite the right thing and doesn't have that ring of authenticity, then it might be counterproductive, as you're saying right now. I tend to think that this is like a superpower. The phrase that keeps coming to mind is AI won't replace you, but a person using AI could. And so this really helps the small player to look bigger, to act bigger, to feel bigger. But there still is some benefit to somebody who becomes an expert at those tools that you can maybe afford as you get to a certain size, who uses those tools and new ones that pop up over time, and will get you better results than, you trying to do it in, 20 minutes because you don't really have a marketing guy or something like that. Right. So
yeah.
Anything else you're seeing?
It's not a new advice, but maybe it's a bit of going back to the basics. So I was also starting my career in a time where you could just throw out 100 queries and see what's working out with data regulation, GDPR, scan, whatever. It's becoming more and more challenging, and maybe reviving old school marketing, right? So barely in the last years, I was talking to someone really like focusing on user research, like you did 50 years ago, right? Really do some focused interviews, right? Talk to people, right? So, I mean, we are all online marketing people, right? So, I mean, we literally talk to each other and we are on different continents, right? So this is what we do. But maybe go back to the basics. We talk to users, right? Could be your gamers, could be your users of your subscription app, right? So how do they use that? So really sit next to them, invite them to your office if you have one, right? And sit next to them, record that, make some interviews, going back to basics, right? Like you did marketing 50 years ago, right? And what's on the user's mind? So what is keeping them up at night? What is driving them? What is the pain point of them, right? And figuring that out. And when you like copywriters tend to say, when you can talk like the user, right? When you really put yourself in the customer's shoes, your copy, your message, your ads will always be better. Don't just list a list of features. It's about benefits. It's about value. It's about what's in it for me, right? So what they get out of that. So it's not a new thing. It's maybe a revival of a old thing.
I'm going to bring up somebody that I've had on Growth Masterminds twice already. And the first time was about probably a year and a half ago now. Her name is Hannah Parvaz, and she's literally changed the trajectory of companies that she's been with by talking to customers, talking to users,
Yep.
talking to players, and understanding at a deep level the value they were getting from what they were doing. And that literally changed their growth trajectory massively and impacted their marketing campaign strategy and messaging for 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Impressive, amazing what you can actually do when you do that.
Yeah. Go back to basics.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Sven, this has been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Thank you for coming on Growth Masterminds.
Thank you, John.